and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about this video I watched. It's called The Hidden Cost of a Hamburger. And this video I watched, oh gosh, it was senior year of high school. At the time I was taking an environmental studies class, and it was honestly one of the best classes I've ever taken in high school. It's honestly probably my favorite class in high school and in college. Oh gosh, my favorite class was environmental ethics. It was a great class. All my environmental classes have been awesome. If you were in college or in high school, definitely recommend taking an environmental studies class. I've always had so much fun. It's always been so interesting for me, and I think it's really something everyone should know about and everyone should be educated in. Long story short, in the class I was taking senior year, I watched this video. So our teacher put on this video. It's called The Hidden Cost of a Hamburger. It's actually on YouTube, and I'll also post the link down below so you can get to it after this video if you want to watch it. Definitely recommend watching it. Super informative, and it's also super interesting. After watching this, it really made me want to change the way I eat and the way I buy things at the grocery store. Well, I was pescatarian for a couple years, and then I was vegetarian for about a year, and then now I am vegan, and it's a life-changing it's been really life-changing for me. I've really enjoyed it. I feel better about what I'm eating, knowing that I didn't cause harm to another animal to get the food I need. And I also feel better about what I'm eating for environmental reasons. There's a lot of methane gas that is a greenhouse gas that's emitted from cows, and we are mass producing these cows for meat consumption, and these cows are eating products that are creating bloating in their system and is leading them to fart and to produce gas by their farts and by their burps, and that's what's producing the methane. So, and by us mass producing these cows, they are emitting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, which is a large contribution to climate change. Methane is a huge contribution to climate change because it has a more warming effect than CO2. CO2 is, in the masses, there's more CO2 molecules in the atmosphere than there is methane. But methane has more warming effect than CO2. So in reality, it's just as bad. And it is a greenhouse gas, and it is contributing to climate change. So in this video that this girl made, and it says that the worldwide livestock that we produce is up there in emissions with cars, trains, and our transportation system. So automatically when we think of climate change, we think of, you know, the coal and natural gas and the oil industries and those big industries that are emitting massive amounts of CO2. But we don't necessarily think of what we consume as food as contributing to climate change. A really interesting quote from this video was that they said if all the Americans once a week ate no meat or cheese, this would have the same climate changing effect as taking 7.6 million cars off the road for 1 year. In this video it says cutting out one burger a week is equivalent to taking your car off the road for 350 miles. And in other countries, as it says in the video, other countries don't eat as much meat as we do. We eat enormous amounts of meat. We think that a dinner plate should consist of a meat and a little bit of veggies and a little bit of fruit and a little bit of this, but our main meal is the meat, which in reality we don't even need that meat. The veggies, the fruit, the grains, they should be the main portion of what you consume, not the meat. The food pyramid is created by these massive livestock meat industries who want to sell their product, who want you to buy their meat, and who want you to know that if you buy their meat you will be healthier because you are meeting the meat criteria of this food pyramid that they made for you. So really, they're really brainwashing us into believing that we need meat because it is on our food pyramid and we need a certain amount of meat and in our diet. when in reality we don't need any meat in our diet. So the US has the largest beef production in the world to supply all of our meat eaters. Us as Americans in the US, we eat 3 times as much meat as in other countries. As the video said, 156 burgers per person per year we consume. One thing that the video brought up is that a single quarter pounder is equal to 6.5 pounds of greenhouse gases. Just think, if you eat 3 burgers in a week, in that week you are emitting the same amount of greenhouse gases as 34 coal-fired power plants. And not only is that contributing to climate change, but it's also a lot of water consumption within the meat that is being made. There's a lot of water to produce the grains that are needed to feed the cows and to feed the livestock, and also there's a lot of water that in raising livestock that just the cows consume. And so there's tons of water, which is leading to our water scarcity problem. We have a huge water scarcity problem worldwide, and this is a major contribution to our water problem we're experiencing right now. And in the video it said to make 1 single pound of ground beef, it takes 800 gallons of water. That's a lot of water consumption for 1 single pound of ground beef. Think about that. When we have our water problems, and in Africa they are literally running out of water, but we are using so much water for our meat. And we are currently cutting down trees and rainforests to make room for these livestock. So not only are they producing methane, but we are also cutting down trees, and trees are absorbing the CO2 in our atmosphere. They're like sponges, so they clean our air. They're absorbing the CO2 we emit. If we cut down those trees, there's no more sponge to absorb our CO2. So worldwide, livestock uses 30% of the Earth's entire land. 30% of our world is taken up by cows and livestock. This 30% of the land used for livestock is from pastures and also from growing feed for these animals. So we use in America 8 times as much land to feed cows than to feed humans. And there's so many other costs of these hamburgers that I never even thought about. I never thought of the fertilizer used to grow the crops that these cows eat. So this inevitably creates runoff. The fertilizer runs off into our streams, and not only does the fertilizer run off, but we also have manure runoff. So we have fertilizer runoff and manure runoff. Manure runoff from the cows and fertilizer runoff from the crops that the cows eat that are going into our streams and our waterways. And this creates algae blooms. So these algae blooms suck the CO2 out of the waterways and leaves dead zones where no animals or wildlife or anything can survive. We, as the consumers, have the ability to change what we consume. And we have the ability to go to the store and choose options that do not contain meat. And if you really want another alternative, there are so many alternatives in the grocery stores. You just have to look a little bit further, but there are other meat alternatives that are made from vegetables and that are made from tofu. If you really just want to have that kind of like meat look-alike, I know that they have like chicken nuggets that are meatless chicken nuggets or meatless chicken wings. So if you really want that, there are other alternatives for you at the store. If not, just buy a lot of vegetables. I mean, I love vegetables personally. I eat vegetables a lot. And you know, you can still eat grains as well, brown rice. You can still eat breads, some bagels. So there are other alternatives, and you don't and you know, eat a lot of beans as well. That's a good source of protein. So eating too much red meat is not only harmful for our environment, but it's also harmful for your health as well. Eating too much red meat can lead to heart disease, high blood pressure, and diabetes. So those are all things you do not want to have. So even just reducing your meat consumption 1 burger at a time can make a big difference. So when I kind of first started reducing meat consumption, I did it gradually. I went pescatarian first, where I was only eating seafood as a meat source. So I wasn't eating chicken, pork, beef, any of that. Then I went to being vegetarian, cutting out all meats and seafood and all of that, and now I'm vegan, cutting out everything that is made from an animal. So that's dairy, that's the cheese, yogurts, and then all, of course, meat and seafood as well. And so I kind of gradually have went there, and if that works better for you, definitely I advise doing that. If it's hard to go cold turkey for you, just gradually take baby steps. Any reduction of meat is helpful. So even if you reduce meat consumption just a few times per week, or maybe you go vegetarian but once a week you eat meat, that could be a trade-off as well. So there are many things you can do for it, and again, there are substitutes. And I used to think, I'm like, oh gosh, like I could never go vegan, like that's crazy, and it's, it's this extreme way of living, and like I can't live without chocolate, I can't live without, desserts, and I'm a sweet tooth person, so I love my chocolate, I love, desserts and pastries and all that. So I was like, oh gosh, I could never go vegan, I couldn't have chocolate anymore, like that was my major thing, cheese, I'm like, okay, maybe I could do without, but like, then, there's so much that dairy is in, and you just kind of forget, and you're just like, oh gosh, how could I live with that, like there's, in so many of these meals, there's dairy products in it. So, but then once I went over and kind of made that commitment to being vegan, I found all of these great tasting foods, and it was kind of, I kind of like having that treasure hunt. You kind of have to look a little harder to find the meatless and dairyless products in your local grocery store, but that hunt's kind of fun, you're like, oh, okay, what doesn't have this, and I read the labels a lot more now that I'm more conscious of what I'm eating. I personally love the change. I feel better about myself, I feel better about what I'm doing for our planet and for our animals. I think we kind of all need to have that outlook on life, that it's exciting to try new things. It's exciting that, if you learn about something and can change your ways and try something else and see if that works for you. And, and I have satisfied my sweet tooth, because now I learned that some dark chocolates are dairyless chocolate, and I've found some great desserts. I still eat ice cream. I eat, it's called frozen dessert, but it tastes exactly like ice cream. So I'm still, having my sweet tooth fix. And I'm eating a lot of the same foods. It's just minor changes to it, like you add something else instead. So you take cookies, you add coconut oil instead, or my dad's banana bread, instead you add applesauce. So there's substitutions where you can still eat some of your favorite foods and just substitute it for something else, and it tastes the same. And actually, meat is pretty expensive in stores, whereas vegetables are really inexpensive. And so, and also, cheese and dairy products, those are super expensive, some of the most expensive things in the store. But if you get a head of broccoli and some brown rice, that's pretty inexpensive. And, with those you get your vegetable protein, and then you throw some beans in there and you get that as well. As long as you're reducing your meat consumption, that is great. Our population is growing. So inevitably, if we don't make a change in our diets, we are going to demand more meat, which means more clear cutting of forests, which means more methane in the air, which means more nitrous oxide in the air from the manure, more dead zones in our waterways, loss of biodiversity. There's just so many effects. It's all about a cause and effect. We really all need to be just conscious of what we are buying, and what kind of effect we have individually. And so this is something, that we can do individually as people in making a change for the better. And this is something that we can do tomorrow. This is something that we can do today to make a difference in climate change. By just not eating meat, we can help the water scarcity problem, we can help the biodiversity problems in our waterways, we can help our climate change problem, we can help our clean air problem. There's just so much that we can do by just not consuming a food source. Thank you again for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope it was super informative. If you have any comments or questions, please comment below. I would love to hear your opinions, or if you tried out a vegan or vegetarian diet, I would love to hear feedback and how it went for you. Or maybe if you just have a recipe you'd like to share with all of us that doesn't contain meat, that would be awesome. And check out the link below as well. That's going to have the link to the hidden cost of a hamburger video, and that's also on YouTube. You can just look it up in the search box as well. Alright, thank you so much, and I will see you next time.